I had, like the other guys, experienced a depression, and we had suffered through this dumb 4 years in Japan and China. And since we survived, we said, boy, we probably ought to try to make the best of it, all of us that had survived. We want to make the best of it. Try to do something. Your life's too short to not.
Wow. Norman Swanson. He survived 4 years as a prisoner of war. He lived to tell his story, and one of surviving the Battle of Wake Island in the middle of the Pacific. Today marks the beginning of the battle, what's been called the Alamo of the Pacific. Soldiers held off the mighty Japanese army hours after Pearl Harbor was bombed.
Norm was on Wake Island working for Morrison-Knudsen when the Japanese invaded. He survived the invasion, but was captured and spent the next 4 years as a Japanese prisoner of war. He survived that too. Swanson knew how lucky he was to live, and when he returned home, he became a nuclear engineer and made the best of his life.
In 2016, he passed away at the age of 92, but his memory and story lives on with his widow, kids, and countless students he shared his story with.
He graduated from high school in Electric City, Washington. And from there, he got a job with Morrison-Knudsen, went over and was working on Wake Island with his brother, his older brother. He was 16 at the time, and when he was captured by the Japanese. It took about 2 weeks for the Japanese to bombard Wake Island, and after Wake Island lost all of its ammunition and there was no replenishing, so the general of the Navy there had to surrender.
How did he describe the Wake Island attack?
One of the things that he did when they were being attacked was he would go get supplies from their warehouse and run them back to the embankment where they had guns set up. They were stunned when they saw the amount of ships that came around the island. They were completely surrounded with like 50 different ships. And of course, the bombers coming over and releasing bombs. So a lot of the POW, or a lot of the people that were on the island were killed during the Japanese attack. But he and his brother both survived that. He spent about 2 years in China, and then they came and got them and took them to Japan. And he was on Japan for the last 2 years of being held as a POW. In order to keep together, they locked arms. Whenever they had to get in line to go through doorways or anything, they would lock arms and hurry and pass through as one person.
How long was he in captivity?
All during the war. He was one of the last prisoners to be released in 45. There was a lot of brutality and very little food that was ever given to him those 4 years. So it was, he had a great deal of anxiety from that later on in life. Had a lot of terrible nightmares sometimes. He'd wake up sort of half screaming, ready to charge, to fight, you know. When he retired, he volunteered at several different junior highs and senior high schools, come and talk to the students about his experiences so that they would know what to expect and what you do to serve your country, what it takes.
What do you think sharing his story and other stories like his, what do you think it does for our future?
Makes them more aware of what history is about and how it affects you.
You know, it all came full circle for him, Kim. Karen says that when the Japanese were finally allowed to start doing nuclear capabilities, they came to the U.S., this was in the 60s, so several years later, and they asked the U.S. for a company that could work with them to get it going. And so they went to his company, and his company put Norm in charge of that contract, in charge of that project. So he went back to Japan. He went 4 times for business purposes. The final time he went with Karen, and his one request was, I want to go back to the last place where I was held captive. So he returned to his POW camp. It's a steel mill. And he went back, and she said it was just this flood of emotion as he walked to the entrance, because things still looked very familiar. They looked the same. And then after that, kind of picked himself up, and he was upbeat the rest of the time. But just an amazing full circle story.
The clip that you showed at the very beginning to start this piece, that was something that his son had put together, or someone had put together for his memorial
son-in-law
service. And when he said, you got to get up and keep going.
I love it.
Boy, that really is a big message for so many of us.
And he went on to live 92 years, and he was able to go back to these high school and junior high school classes and share his story.
Yeah.